Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin Gonzalez, and today I'm honored to have a special guest on the podcast. I was actually a guest on her podcast, and it's so cool because both of us are in the mindset space. Both of us really dove in on her podcast, and I'm looking forward to really taking a second round at it and getting to get her take this time on a lot of things. So I want you guys to all welcome Heather Hakes. She is a dynamic, mindset coach. She's a speaker. She, actually just got back from a speaking engagement, everything we were just talking about. And she's actually an author as well. So I'm really excited to bring her on and see where this conversation takes us. So, Heather, thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be on the other side.
So let's dive in a little bit. I know let's start off with you're just, at an engagement, a speaking engagement. What was that about?
It was actually virtual, but it was a summit for female entrepreneurs. And what I talked about was from self-doubt to self-mastery. And what I really like to share with most of my coaching clients have been entrepreneurs and business owners. But the success in your business or even in life is a direct reflection of the ability to lead yourself. Everything comes down to it's an inside job. And when I don't want to use the word fix, but when you change from the inside out, everything changes with it.
That's so awesome. And so, being a virtual, I think I figured it was an event you went to, be just the word summit, I figured mountain, go a destination. So I think I just put those words together in my own head. But that's so awesome. How I know you've done, different summits and different engagements, how did you get into the mindset coaching space?
Well, I didn't plan any of this. What I did do is I went the traditional route. I went to college. I got a degree. I got another degree. I climbed the corporate ladder for a decade and I was not happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I was going through life's motions. And I've been into personal development for more than 20 years. And so while I was still in my 9 to 5, I invested in actually it was a couple different coaches. One was how to quit your 9 to 5. The next one was more like a life coach. And from there, like I had no plan, but I had this inner nudge, this feeling that I was meant for more. So I took a leap of faith, no plan, and I quit. And all of this has kind of come as I continually took the steps. I putting myself in personal development circles, and a lot of people there had podcasts. So that's where I started. And then I got into coaching. Actually, it was just through some connections on Facebook. People reached out to me. And so then I've just continually adapted and evolved and innovated. And now this is what I do full time, coaching and podcasting, and I freaking love it.
That's so awesome. So, I want to dive into that a little bit because, a lot of people work a 9 to 5 or, want to take that initial jump in. I can even speak for myself as, when I was a personal trainer working for a corporate gym, I always saw the trainers that were doing it for themselves and, being an independent trainer and so forth. And for me, it was almost, I got that nudge, right? And it was like, I could either, let it take me to the next thing that's aligned with what I'm doing, or I could do the thing I've been scared to do. And like you said, you like to say, like, take a leap of faith. For me, it's like bet on yourself, and both are the same.
Yeah.
But for you, what let you know to follow that intuition or to fully commit and take that leap of faith? Because again, so many people are on the edge, and their toes are hanging off the edge of that cliff, and it's like they're still too scared to let themselves, go in. So what led you to really take that initiative?
First thing I want to say is you can let fear rule you, or you can learn to let fear fuel you. And I choose to let it fuel me. Fear and excitement are the same physical experiences, maybe rapid heart rate, butterflies in your stomach, kind of the jitters, that tight breathing. But also, so fear and excitement give you the same thing. It's the mindset shift on what you do with it. Here's how I ended up leaving my 9 to 5, because if I had listened to anybody else, I would have never left the golden handcuffs. Everybody, why would you leave a cush stable corporate job? Because I hated it. So I had to tune out, and especially, I mean, my parents supportive, but they're very old school. My dad retired with a pension. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I don't come from entrepreneurs. People around me, why would you do that? So don't let other people's limitations limit you. Here's how I took a leap of faith. I talked myself into it, and I literally got pen to paper, pro'd and conned it. What was the worst case scenario? And for me, the worst case scenario was I'd have to get another job. And then I was like, okay, that's not so bad. I had some money in the bank. I could take at least a couple. At that time, I ended up quitting in June. I was like, all right, if any, I'll just take the summer off. Well, I'm pushing 7.5 years later. I've never gone back to a 9 to 5. So like you said, bet on you. Jump and the net will appear. If you take that leap of faith, like, resources and opportunities will come your way, but you have to show up every single day. It's a lot of self-discipline.
No, that's exactly on point. And it's, the net will appear as long as you believe in it. Like, the way I like to, tell it is everything begins and ends with your mindset, right? If you believe it can work, if you believe that there's the opportunity, like you said, the opportunities will present themselves. And because you have the opportunistic mindset, it's possible. You will achieve it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will happen as long as you keep, staying dedicated towards it. But the moment you stop believing in it,
Yeah.
is the moment it becomes impossible.
100%. And those are I call entrepreneurship personal development on steroids. And the three biggest things that I had to overcome early in my journey were self-doubt, procrastination, and imposter syndrome. And that mentality and that self-image was leading to $0 in my bank account and no impact. And so again, like, back against the wall, it came down to I had to create a strong why, and my why became my driver. And my why is how I've created consistency. I'm just shy of 700 podcast episodes. Like, that doesn't happen by chance. Like, I figured out my why, got out of my own way. So that's what I preach from the rooftops for most people. Get out of your own way. Like, some people say the sky's the limit. No, it's not. Your belief system is.
No, exactly. And I want to say, like, for you, because for some people, it's easier than others to get over those self-limiting beliefs or that, self-doubt. What for you was one of the key strategies, or now helping clients, what is the key strategy that you help them overcome their limiting doubts or self-beliefs?
I mean, it really comes down to change is simple. I'm not saying it's necessarily easy at first, but the question I ask potential clients, because I want to know their mindset. Do they have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? So the question I ask is, if you were 100 pounds overweight, could you lose 100 pounds? That's all I want to know. Could you lose 100 pounds? That's all I ask. And I actually have had a couple of people like, no. All right, well, then I can't work with you, because if you don't think you could lose 100 pounds, what does that come down to? So whether it's changing your life, increasing your finances, bettering your relationships, it comes down to daily disciplines and practices. And even for me, like, sometimes it's self-doubt creep in occasionally when I compare myself to somebody else. So I've had to unfollow and clean up my social media feed so that I can stay focused and disciplined. But really, it just comes down to my daily intentional practices. Don't complicate it. Mine is very simple. It's 4 steps. I have an acronym, MIND, and I just follow it. And if you understand the 1% better mentality, one foot in front of the other, like, you just keep showing up for yourself.
I love that. I love that. And I'd say the same thing, like, every day you should be trying to get 1% better, right? And if you're, getting 1% better every single day, like, think about that in times a year. And for me, it's like, sometimes we get so hard on ourselves, especially as an entrepreneur. It's like everything might be moving so fast, and all of a sudden you hit, a little bit of sand, and things start to slow down a little bit. And then you start questioning yourself. You start questioning, your abilities. And this even happened when I launched my gym with my business partner. We were going so fast and everything was, just happening, and we were, killing it. And then things weren't going as fast. We were still growing, but it just wasn't going as fast. And then so we started getting hard on ourselves, starting to put second guess a lot of things. And then it was like, dude, think about where we were last year. Think about where we were 5 years ago. Like, and then when you take that realization and shift the perspective of how much you've accomplished, and you're grateful for everything that you've done, and then all of a sudden you realize there was hurdles along the way, that whole 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, whatever the case is, and you overcame them. This is no different, right?
It's a continual talking yourself into greatness. And how I do this and build my mindset muscle, I love endurance feats. I just have an athletic background. I'm constantly talking about getting myself out of my comfort zone, but I'm constantly putting myself and doing hard physical challenges to build my mindset, to overcome those negative narratives. And so what I have done in athletics and fitness correlates to what I do in business. So I've built the confidence physically and mentally. So it's also, correlating to what I do in business.
Exactly. And I love the analogies between fitness and entrepreneurship or business. And I tell people it's funny that I'm in the fitness business on top of that. But, my favorite thing is like, the analogy of, you sign up for a gym, you give everything you can that first day in the gym. Yet you wake up the next morning, you lift up your shirt, no change. And you go again day 2 and you do everything as hard as you can, lift up your shirt, no change. So it's the most difficult thing, being consistent when you're not seeing that immediate change, those immediate results, but you're on the right path. So you just need to keep showing up, and those compounded, efforts and daily actions start to, manifest into your results when they accumulated together.
I don't know this exact statistics, but what you're saying, there's something about like it'll take you, is it 4 to 6 weeks to notice change? It'll take others 8 weeks to notice change. So the point is, it takes time. But I also like to use the metaphor of a mental garden.
Mhm.
So the thoughts you think, the goals you have, the things you want to accomplish are seeds that you plant. And if you're constantly planting and digging up, I mean, you're never going to reap the harvest, right? So you plant the
Mhm.
seed, and then it's continual fertilization. I started gardening a couple years ago, and everything has its own gestation period. This is what Abraham Hicks talks about when it comes to law of attraction and manifesting. Everything has a gestation period. You don't necessarily know how long something's going to take, and that's not even your job.
Mhm.
Your job is to get clear on the what, and you show up doing what you can do, the aligned actions and the consistency and creating the belief and the certainty. And then life, the resources and opportunities, and like it does happen.
Mhm. No, definitely. Yeah. The analogy that you're mentioning too, like that's something that we use and tell people in the gym. So it gives them an understanding, not to like short sell them on the results that they'll get in the short term, but to make sure that we're also kind of priming their mindset to know this is not going to be, you didn't get here in a month. Like you're not going to get out of this in a month. So typically, like what we tell people is like it takes, acquaintances or, friends that you don't see that often, typically 4 weeks of you doing something for them to see those results. Then it takes family and friends that are a little closer to you that see you, every other day or so, about 8 weeks. And then it takes you about 12 weeks to see those results, because you do see yourself in the mirror day in and day out. And so you have to realize that's 3 months of you putting in the work before you actually notice those micro changes becoming a macro change. You know?
Well, and the idea that I talk about is it's a long game. And that's what I
Mhm.
shared in yesterday's summit. You have to realize business and life. It's
Yep.
a long game, and there is no destination. It's just a constant journey, because once you get the one thing, then it's like you wanna continually to up level.
Mhm.
Change is the only constant. We're here to grow and evolve, so realize there is no end point. One day you're not gonna wake up, but between now and then, enjoy the journey, get yourself out of your comfort zone, see what you're made of, and, like, whether or not you live your best life is totally up to you.
Oh, exactly. And so with that, right, I want you to kind of dive into something that, I've seen on some of your social media posts. I was kind of scrolling through and doing a little social media creep before we hopped on, the podcast to get some deeper dive topics. But, in terms of mindset, right? A lot of people will start to have that victim mentality to a degree, or they believe that their circumstances dictate their outcome. Can you dive into that a little bit?
You have to take 100% responsibility for your life. And like, you really do, because you're either living, excuse me, you're either living your life by design or by default. Life is never happening to you. It is always happening, number one, for you, and number two, through you. And so here's the mindset shift. It's called a paradigm shift that I have had. Wherever you're at in life, whatever current circumstance you have is simply a reflection of your past thinking and being. So the dollar amount in your bank account is a reflection of, number one, your money mindset, but number two, of your past habits and whatever. So if you want to increase that, realize it's an inside job. You can't blame, well, you can, but it's a waste of time. You can't blame the government and people and your boss and your partner for your current circumstances in life. And when you do complain, if you do complain or blame others, that is victim mentality, which simply means you've given your power away. You cannot create change from that state. When you take 100% responsibility, ooh, I created that. And you come from a curiosity standpoint. So that's what I do. I live in curiosity. I'm like, I created that. And like, I never talk bad about people I used to date, because it was like, what in me attracted that? And what gift did that person bring into my experience? That Peter Crone says this. He calls himself the mind architect. People and circumstances come into your life to reveal where you're not healed. And when you have that mentality to realize everything is happening for you, every connection and someone crossing your path is either a reason or a season or a lifetime. Grow through what you go through. And so that's just the mentality that I live by. What is this gift? What is this teaching me? What's this opportunity to grow and evolve?
Grow through what you go through. I love that. Can you say that quote one more time that you said a second ago? Like that, I was trying to like take that in, and I was like, wow, that was actually really like a really profound quote. And then you were saying other deep stuff right after. I was like, hold on. I was like, oh my goodness. Can you just go rewind real quick back to that?
For sure. I'm a walking quote book. But Peter Crone says, people and circumstances come into your life to reveal where you're not healed. So for example, I found myself, I don't know why, but I had a lot of road rage, like really easily triggered in traffic, easily triggered when somebody was driving too slow by my judgment, easily triggered when somebody cut me off. And so I turned it into a game. I'm like, why am I so impatient? Why am I so frustrated? Why am I so annoyed? And traffic has been a huge gift for me, and I now let that shit go. I just let that shit go. But other things, whenever you get triggered, which simply means when you have a knee-jerk reaction, when you feel defensive, when you are annoyed, when you are bothered, go, oh, what is this? What emotional response is this tapping on that I need to release? That's all it is. So find the gift. Otherwise, you're going to continue to repeat the patterns until it gets so uncomfortable that you have no choice, but you have to change your thinking.
Guys, I'm going to say, if you are not taking notes right now, pull out your pad and pen and make sure you guys are taking notes. The things that she is saying, not only are they on point, but I hope that it is shifting some of your perspectives and the way you view yourself and allowing you to open up your mind. Because I mean, as you saw, I just had her rewind too, because the things that she's saying, it gives you may think it already, and you may know it in a way that you've heard before, but sometimes all of a sudden, like what she just said, that it was just like, boom, I needed to hear that again. Like that was such a huge like way it put, not just her, like the quote from that she said, but then her explanation of it. Right. So again, make sure you guys are really taking notes on this, because if not, you're losing out on that 1% getting better today. But I want to dive into this a little bit, right? Because people, they'll be able to analyze themselves, and they may not make excuses for what they do, right? They may take responsibility for what they do, right? And that's one of my big things is, if you make excuses, that's not acceptable to me, right? Because you're not owning up to what happened. You were late. Don't make excuses. There was traffic. You decided not to wake up early, like anything like that. But what happens if you're playing the victim card in terms of life events that were outside of your control, whether it was from when you're younger, whether you were older, and it was, an unfortunate, life event. I don't want to dive too much into details of subjects, but now you've moved past that. You're in a new phase of your life, but yet you still have that limit, basically limiting your growth potential, because that underlying I am a victim, card is there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'll just come from, again, just my perspective and where I'm at. There are some teachings. Now, I do not have a religious background. I very much more into spirituality, and I love science because science can prove and demystify all of the, if you want to call it woo woo, but how thoughts becomes things. Like quantum physics literally teaches how you can have quantum leaps in your life. But for people who are feeling stuck or dwelling on the past or blaming circumstances, so here's something I want to offer you. So David Guillaume, he's a teacher of Kabbalah. Again, he says Kabbalah is not a religion, that it's more spiritual wisdom, but it's a little religious to me. Anyway, I stay open-minded and curious, and I listen to a lot of his content, and I took this Kabbalah course because I love learning new things from different angles. And so what he talks about, and I think a lot of people have this view, kind of like the idea of karma. To me, karma is simply, life is a boomerang. What you put out, you get back. So when you do good, good comes back to you. But what he talks about is, if you believe in reincarnation, so there are some school of thought that we come in, that we chose our parents. We chose the life lessons. We chose our siblings. We chose our romantic partners, because if I go back to that quote, people and circumstances come into your life to reveal where you're not healed. If you come from the school of thought that we chose our parents and our siblings and different circumstances in life to grow and evolve, again, you step into a space of, you are a co-creator of your life, that life is happening for you, that you actually wanted to have whatever experience so that you could choose forgiveness. You chose whatever experience so you could overcome judgment. You chose whatever to overcome whatever you needed to overcome. And even that kind of shifted it into, okay, if I came into this life, and this is a conversation I had with one of my girlfriends, Tiffany, a couple months ago. I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me. Like, it just hit me in a new light. I was driving to the airport, actually going to LA for Summit of Greatness, Lewis House, his big podcast. But I was driving and it hit me, and I had this aha moment. And I was like, Tiffany, I came into this life experience as Heather Hakes. I wanted to be a mindset coach. I wanted to teach mindset. I chose my sibling, and I chose all of these things, self-doubt and imposter syndrome. I chose these things that I wanted to overcome to grow and evolve in this lifetime. What if you had that perspective?
I mean, that is so unique, right? Is this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I saw this, on some of the social media and stuff, and I was on your website and everything. Is this kind of aligned with what I've seen mentioned as like divine choreography, or is that something else?
That, I'm not sure where you got that. That's not something I talk about. But again, going back to just what David Guillaume is sharing from Kabbalah, Kabbalah teaches that we have infinite lives and reincarnation and all that stuff, that, like, I don't really follow all of that, but he's just sharing from that lens that you came in with, quote, spiritual baggage, and in this lifetime you have free will to overcome those challenges and obstacles.
Got you. I don't know. Maybe that was just something that I made a note of as I was, watching some of your stuff, and maybe I put it in quotes, and I don't remember if it was something you were talking about or something that I kind of was, going to make a note on it. But I was like, wait, this kind of sounds, like that whole thought of the spirituality side of it. And I was like, wait, let me ask, so maybe it was a note that I didn't write the rest of my note down. So makes sense. But diving into the forgiveness part that you mentioned a little bit earlier, right? What role does forgiveness play though in the healing process and in someone's ability to, start to change their perspective or their mindset?
Here's the thing. We can choose, because you have free will to choose. You can choose to hold on to anger and resentment and shame and guilt and stuff from past experiences, and you're mad at somebody and they did you wrong, but the only one you're hurting is you. So I think it's one, forgiveness of self. I'm forgiving myself for even holding on to that. And I'm not saying like forgiveness corrects the quote wrong. Maybe somebody really did wrong you, steal from you, or whatever. But forgiveness sets you free. It frees and liberates you, because here's what happens. From past experiences, it creates emotions, and that's what memories are. They're just emotional states. And if you don't liberate and free your emotions, this is where most people are stuck and hung up. And you're dwelling on the past, and you have anger and resentment and judgment, all this stuff. I think of it as Tetris blocks. So you have all of these Tetris blocks in your body. And if you don't deal with them, that's where chronic pain and dis-ease and all of that stuff comes, because you no longer have an energetic flow for the abundance and the love that you seek. So holding on to things is only hurting you.
Interesting. I've never thought about it as memory. Memories are just emotions. Can you explain that a little bit? Like what you mean by that?
Yeah, so Dr. Joe Dispenza is really good about teaching this. I love him. He teaches neuroscience. But I was rewatching, this is very timely, but I was rewatching a documentary last night called Heal. You can find this on Amazon, so it's free. But Heal talks about all of our blocks in life are literally trapped emotions. And if we don't deal with those trapped emotions, that's what creates blockages in our life. And it can create cancer, dis-ease, ailments, digestive issues. Any blocks in life are all trapped emotions. So what you asked on, if you think about it, so if you're thinking about a past experience or a past memory, your thoughts go straight to emotions. So what I talk about often is the thought cycle. It's just 3 steps in reality creation. Your thoughts then create your emotions. Your emotions drive your behaviors, and that creates every result in your life. 3 steps: thoughts, emotions, actions, results. If you don't like your current results in life in any area, reverse engineer. But again, when we're holding on to and thinking about past things, those memories, emotions are what tie to them. It's the emotions you have to overcome to free and liberate yourself.
Honestly, that's interesting. It makes sense. I mean, the way you worded it made sense. I mean, if I try to say it again right now, it wouldn't make sense. But I understand it, and honestly, it is true, because like you think of a past event, and there's all of a sudden immediate joy that you feel. Right? You think of a past event where you see yourself as a victim, immediately you become intimidated, you become fearful, you feel small, and not letting go of those emotions and letting those things go, they can start to fester into, like, the body is so crazy. Like the body is so crazy, like in its capabilities to do things is what I mean. And those can fester into other things and other ailments, and whether it's hormone levels and all those things. So I do not, disagree with you whatsoever on that. That is just a really unique perspective or take on it. So that's why I just asked on it. That was really cool. So I want to take a full on tangent, because you mentioned, and I know on your website, you have a money mindset course, correct? And what's crazy is I actually just dropped a book on it right now. It's January. So January 14th, it's called Money Muscle Mindset. And so I think, I mean, they're a little bit different in what they cover, but the title of it, when I saw that, I was like, that's crazy. So can you dive a little bit into, what the the money mindset course is and stuff. And obviously at the end, as well, guys, her website and link, everything's in the show notes. But we'll say it again at the end just to make sure you guys are able to connect. But can you dive in a little bit what money mindset course is?
Okay, so let's just talk about money mindset. We all have one. And what I really do as a mindset coach is you have to understand your operating system, which is your subconscious mind. We're not taught this stuff. And this is where a lot of my deep dive and personal development and education has come from, wanting to understand, why do we do what we do? How do we create lasting change in our life? And you have to get to the operating system. So here's the analogy I use. There's nothing inherently wrong with your smartphone, but your phone is only as good as the apps installed. Okay, so pay attention to that. Your phone is only as good as the apps installed. Many of us have viruses. And especially if you came from, so think about this. Dr. Bruce Lipton says this, that your life is a printout of your subconscious programming. If you currently have pain points and feel stuck financially, I just want you to stop and think, what are your limiting beliefs around money? What stories do you tell about money? And then go back. What did you grow up with money? A lot of people grew up in financial hardship. Money was hard to come by. There was never enough. Your parents fought over money. One of my girlfriends, she has a whole podcast on this and coaches married couples on monies. And one of the stats she posted today was 43% of couples argue about money. I think it was weekly. So money's our biggest thing. So anyway, go back to when all of your subconscious mind was originally programmed, which is birth up until age 7. So if you lived in a home where your parents struggled financially, and a lot of people talk about generational trauma, think about it. Like, my G-ma comes from the Great Depression era. I know she's well off and I know she has money, but she has a broke mentality. She has, anytime she goes shopping, she feels so bad and she shouldn't have done that. She shouldn't have spent money. And my mom chose to break free of her conditioning. My mom has been so generous and full of gratitude and taught me that. So getting back to money mindset, you have to understand that the dollar amount in your bank account is a direct reflection of your mental programming when it comes to money. Let me give a real world example. When I created that course and did that money mindset course, I did a lot of research around this. Did you know that 70% of lottery winners, so we're talking people that have won multi-million-dollar jackpots, 70% of them blow it within 3 to 5 years? People have won multi-million-dollar jackpots and had to file for bankruptcy. Does that blow your mind? It should, and here's why. They didn't have the identity of a millionaire. So they unconsciously sabotage. I'm going really deep here. There's a lot of golden nuggets here. But if things get better than your current set point, so think about a thermostat. When things get better, we unconsciously self-sabotage to bring it back to the known. So individuals who won multi-million-dollar jackpots unconsciously self-sabotaged, blew it all because they had a $50,000 a year mindset. So understand that in order to upgrade your life, your finances, your health, your relationships and business, to go to that next level, you have to change from the inside out. So if we go back to the thermostat, if your current set point is 75 degrees, you want to raise it to 90 degrees or 100, whatever it is you want. But you have to raise your internal set point, your mindset, the subconscious mind, your operating system. So getting back to money, the current dollar in your bank account is a direct reflection of your level of toleration. Do you tolerate being broke? Right? Do you tolerate overspending to unconsciously self-sabotage? Like, it's very nuanced, people and money. It's very nuanced. But number one, just understand, what was the stories you were told about money growing up? Look at your current bank account. Pay attention to the stories you tell about money and your limiting beliefs. And that's where I call it, you have to pull the weeds and plant new seeds. Did I answer your question? I went all over with that.
No, you did. And honestly, I want to give you just a quick, compliment. And you're either either you have taken this back to the high school level in terms of you have a cheat sheet written on a water bottle, or your ability to quote is honestly, it's profound. Like I'm astonished at your ability to not just quote, but go into depth on each of these quotes. I'm like, dude, you might have a photo memory or something, because like this is insane. This is so cool. Like, I'm just loving it. And then also your ability to convey a message into analogies. Like I'm a huge analogy person. Like I love analogies, and your ability to go in and out of explanation to analogy. Again, I just wanted to give you that kudos. It's not easy to do.
Thanks. I'll tell you my cheat sheet real quick. When I went through my personal development chapter of I became a self-help junkie. I was constantly consuming, going to the next event, chasing that next high, but I wasn't getting change. Guess what? I debunk this all the time in personal development. Knowledge is power. No, it's not. Not on its own. Knowledge is potential power. So what I had to do and how my brain works is I get pen to paper. I watched this YouTube video 4 times over the weekend. It was a 44-minute video. I watched it 4 times to fully absorb. The 4th time I actually took notes. I paused it. So here's what I do. When I'm reading books, I highlight, I take notes. And what I love to do, so I appreciate the compliment, I like to take these like neuroscience and universal laws and make it tangible, but more importantly, practical. Because if you give me the formula or the steps, I'm going to put it into play. And that's what I love doing for others. Like, again, change is simple. This doesn't have to be complicated, but you have to apply what you learn.
Yes. No, and I was referring because it was making me like think back to like, high school or college days when, you write on the inside of the water labels, the teacher can't see it. And all of a sudden you try to unroll it. And, I was like, that's the amount that you're able to retain. It is so cool. But, it is so true. Like knowledge is potential power, like you said. Right. And I'm a big advocate for that as well, because so many people get stuck in this loop of I need to know more. I don't know enough yet. I'm going to start once I know this. And then all of a sudden during that process of learning this, you realize you don't know more stuff. Look, you'll never know everything. Like you don't know what you don't know, but your game plan, your action plan is never going to go according to plan. I mean, I wrote a 30-page business plan to launch the gym and didn't really utilize it once the gym was open because everything had to adapt and change and move around. It's like, that's just a set stage for you to be like, okay, I can figure out the base level. And then you have to take detours. You have to get around it. So again, the main thing is try stuff out, right? You said you watched the YouTube video, 4 times, that's crazy. That's awesome that you have that determination and that willingness to really understand the subject that way. I mean, it's showing volumes right now. And then take action on it, right? If someone gives you a formula, it's like you're not waiting to find another formula to see which one's better. You're like, okay, well, let me try the formula. Does it work? Right. Or don't getting an error, right? And so it's like, that's, people ask me like, how did I learn sales? And I did the same thing you're talking about. I literally watched YouTube video, and not multiple, like one, and I would watch it, take notes, then go try it. Didn't work. I'd watch the same YouTube video. I'm like, wait, what did I miss? Yeah. And then again, try it again. So again, everything you're saying, literally, it's like we're almost the same person on that side. So that is awesome. I've never really said that out loud because I thought other people do it, but then when I tell people, they're like, you do that? And I'm like, I didn't know other people didn't do that, So I do want to, before we wrap things up, I do want to ask one question. I like to ask everybody. We didn't talk about this beforehand. And the reason is because I want the first thing that comes to mind. Everyone wants this profound answer. I want the most authentic answer that comes to mind. Now, this is Heather's legacy wall. I will say there is not a tombstone on this, right? So some people give me a tombstone answer. That's not what I'm looking for. I want your legacy message or your legacy lesson that first comes to mind that you've learned or experienced through your journey.
Your life is only as good as your mindset.
Plain and simple.
That's it. Literally that came out while you were sharing that, but your life is only as good as your mindset. And it's not a cliche statement. When you truly understand and you do the work and realize, and again, put this into play. I think of life as one big experiment. I'm constantly experimenting, trying new things. I want to see how good I really am. But when you understand, if I created this, then what else can I create? It's the game of life and how to play it.
No, exactly. And when I was saying plain and simple, it's not a cliche saying whatsoever. I mean, that one statement is a testament that everything that you said you've been through, the corporate job to, everything that you've accomplished thus far, and it's all that one statement, right? So it's like sometimes we try to overcomplicate things, and it's just, take it back to the basics. Take it, break it down simple. It's all about your mindset, right? So where can people connect with you and everything? Because honestly, I know even I got so much out of this, and this is our second run at this. And again, you still just dropping knowledge on knowledge. So, where can other people connect with you as well?
The best place to start is my website, heatherhakes.com. All of my social links are there. I'm on all the platforms. I love Instagram at heather.hakes. But just start at my website. I have some free resources and links to connect with me.
Awesome. And guys, that website will be in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, that's in the description. Guys, make sure you guys share this episode with a friend, right? There is someone in your circle that needs to hear this and develop their mindset. I know that on the Mindset Cafe, we talk about a lot about mindset, but this episode in particular, I guarantee if you send it to one person, you're not just helping us out. You're going to change one person in your circle's life. Right. So don't do your friend disservice by not making them get better. So Heather, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and hopping on and giving the audience a episode filled with knowledge. You can take that mic and just drop it right after everything you've said. Honestly, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be